What do DMs really want from their players? What traits do the very best players have, and how do they elevate everyone's experience at the table? Welcome creators, I am Holistic Dungeon Master and I help DMs master their craft. If you're enjoying my content so far, then please like the video, crit the subscribe button and notification bell. Now let's get rolling! Oh. I've had some pretty awful players in my games, but I've ran a lot of them with strangers online, so it was bound to happen eventually. Their negative influence on my games really used to upset me. I really thought that it was something that I was doing wrong. Even though I had a ton of wonderful, amazing players who were always thanking me for a great session and leaving me reviews on Start Playing, it really put a dent in my confidence as a DM. So much so that it began to really affect my sessions. It got so bad that one of those aforementioned wonderful players, they actually reached out to me to ask if anything was wrong. After explaining that I felt like a completely useless and incompetent DM who couldn't even make sure that everyone was having a great time, they told me that I wasn't the problem. It was the problem player. Then they explained to me all of the ways that that player was putting a downer on everyone's enjoyment. That got me thinking, why was I letting that player ruin it for everyone? So, long story short, I booted that player and the rest of us went on to have a great campaign. But I couldn't help but wonder, what makes a great player? And what do I want from the people at my table? After thinking about the best players and groups that I've ever had over the years, I realized that they all had these 5 traits in common. And now, when screening potential groups and players, I keep an eye out for all of them. And stick around to the end of the video to find out how that last trait, that 5th one, ties them all together. Let's jump right in. There's nothing worse than an indifferent and unengaged player. Now, of course, we DMs need to do all we can in this video here to ensure that we are providing an experience that can and will engage our players. But players who show enthusiasm in our world are a sheer joy. When they take the time to talk to random NPCs, when they ask us questions about what's around them, when they explore and observe the scenes that we narrate to them. Not only is this just like a really good feeling when something we've created engages the players actually help us to flesh out our world when they show interest and engagement in it. Our job is to pretty much provide a general description of each scene and location. If we go into too much detail, then we're just narrating for 20 minutes, and that's no fun for anyone. But when the players engage with specific parts of it, then we get to elaborate and improvise. This massively enriches the scene that we are collectively imagining, and it also prompts other players to get involved with it too. And when they do, the best players usually try crazy nonsense. The rogue has observed our scene and our world, and they've noticed that the greedy merchant always locks their generously stocked and well-guarded warehouse when they go out for lunch, taking the key with them. The bard has spoken to a few local NPCs and has learned of another bard in the area who accepts any challenges to beat them in a contest of musical skill. The barbarian has taken the time in combat to survey the battlefield and has noticed that the rafters are rickety and could be easily smashed. Each of these scenarios, and I'm sure you've got plenty of your own, and each of them are ripe for the players to try and pull off some crazy nonsense. Of course, yes, there are some ill-intentioned players who try to break our game with their nonsense, but it's the best players who try mad stunts that will lead to interesting encounters or even mini adventures for the whole party. This can be wonderful in combat too, and it's during these moments that I tend to favor the rule of cool over rules as written. The best thing about those moments and situations that stem from your players trying this crazy stuff is that it provides them with ample opportunity for the next trait. DMs want their players to roleplay. Nothing deflates my DM tires like a player who doesn't roleplay. Sure, if a player is shy or they're not used to it, that's totally fine as long as they're trying. It's a huge part of the game. They're called tabletop role-playing games for a reason. But I've had some players that just straight up refuse to roleplay. I had one guy literally say, "Yep, I don't really want to do that," when another player tried to get to know their character better during a watch on their long rest. Ouch, it was painful. Not only did that deflate me, but it discourages the other players from role-playing. What a disaster. But players who get stuck into role-playing do so much for the DM, but also the entire table. It also helps the DM get into character if a player is really getting into theirs. It breaks that feeling for everyone now, not just the DM of, "Oh my god, I'm the only one doing a silly voice. This is horrible, this is cringe." And it transforms it into into a feeling of collaboration. Just like the anti-RP player, the roleplay enthusiast has a significant impact on the rest of the table, but this time a positive one. They let them know that it's okay to do it. It's not weird, it's not cringe, we're all involved, so just let loose and get into character. And speaking of characters, Dungeon Masters go absolutely wild for players who provide detailed character backstories. Before we delve deeper into the video, I'd just like to give a huge shout out to my Patreon supporters. You guys are helping me make better content for this channel and beyond, so thank you so much for supporting. More information about how you can support the channel at the end of the video. There's nothing more painful, or there's few things more painful than trying to involve a character story in the narrative when they've given you about a paragraph of backstory. No past failures, no potential enemies, no major goals, no family members who may be missing or dead or still alive, nothing. This can be totally fine if you're running a kind of a grindhouse adventure where PC lives are cheap and the fun basically comes from seeing how they die and busting out new characters to play. But the way the meta is going, backstory heavy and ultra narrative campaigns are becoming the norm. They will be the norm going forward, and this is mostly due to actual play shows like Critical Role and Dimension 20. There are plenty of wonderful returns to old school, crunchy, death around every corner gameplay that you should definitely check out. I'll show some of them here and I'll link some of them down in the description below. I'm not affiliated with them or anything, I just think they're super, super cool. For most players, most people who want to play the game and want to run the game, it's going to be backstory heavy. So the very best players, they give us those 8-page backstories and we love it, right? And they understand that elements of it will only be explored if the DM can make it fit well into the story. Can't just shoehorn everything in there if it doesn't make sense. However, the more our players give us, the more raw material that we have to work with, and the more kind of different things we can pull in, and the more likely something in that 8-page backstory is to fit into whatever narrative is being explored at the time. This is never a bad thing. Having too much to work with is never a bad thing. Unless, of course, they expect you to use it all. Session 0, folks. Important stuff. Bonus points to the player who connects their backstory to other players. If they do this, then when you get round to focusing on backstory material, not just one player gets their time in the spotlight. I've been building up to this last point. Each and every one of those aforementioned traits depend heavily upon it to separate great players from the good. Truly, great players involve everyone. Whether engaging in our world, trying crazy nonsense, role-playing, or writing detailed character backstories, great players always find a way to involve other players. This is a collaborative game, and unfortunately, some players tend to forget that. It might seem for some that the best way to enjoy the game is to hog the spotlight and getting to do the most awesome stuff in a session. But the game's heart and soul, the way to enjoy it to its absolute fullest potential as a player, is doing stuff with your friends at the table. Would that rogue have more fun if they tried to heist goods from that warehouse if they did it alone? Or if they hatched a scheme with other player characters who can all do different things and aid them in this heist? A scenario like that will, of course, inevitably fall beautifully, chaotically apart, as all plans in D&D tend to do, but that's where the magic lies. You get to succeed and mess up with your friends, and anything worth doing in this life is worth doing with friends. Down in the description, you'll find a link to my free archetypal NPC PDF. They are system, neutral, and story focused, so you can start adding compelling characters into your games right away. No matter what game you're playing, there's a huge update coming to this very, very soon, within the next couple of weeks from the time of this video. So join that mailing list and keep an eye on your inboxes to get it for free also. You'll also find the link to the HDM community Discord server. We have weekly improv events, we have prep streams, and we're organizing games in there. So hop on in and join the fun. You've heard a lot from me, now I want to hear from you. In fact, we all do. Let us know, which of these traits do your players have? Is there someone who doesn't have any of them? And if so, why are they still at your table? Let us all know so we can foster this community of DMs who help each other hone their craft. If you've watched this video up until now, then you are the DM that I make these videos for. Someone who is truly dedicated to being the best DM that they can be. So thank you so much for watching all the way to the end. If you'd like to support the channel further, you'll also find the link to my Patreon down in the description. If you want to have meaningful input to the content that's made on this channel, or if you just want a sneak peek behind the scenes of the inner workings of this channel and projects beyond it, then please do subscribe to it. But if you'd like a lovely free way to support the channel, then like the video, crit the subscribe button and notification bell. And remember, this world needs good DMs.